Welcome back to IGN Live at Gamescom 2018. It's time to check in with Starlink Battle for Atlas. Lawrence is the creative director. Welcome to the IGN stage.
Thank you.
We've seen Starlink at a couple E3s now. What are you guys showing off at Gamescom this week?
So this week we're showing a particular mission that is set on the Heaven planet. You're going to meet the Prospector faction, and in particular one member of the Prospectors that we call Eli. And you need to meet Eli to get more information about the enemies of the game, the Forgotten Legion.
Right. So how do the factions work?
So we have like 3 factions in Starlink Battle for Atlas. The first one is the Industrious Prospectors. They're trying to settle themselves on those planets, scrapping whatever resources they can find at the surface of those worlds. Then we get the Scientific Expedition. Those guys are studying the life of Atlas, and specifically the relation between the abundance of like electrum, a precious mineral, and the abundance of life on those worlds. And then finally, we have the Outlaws. And the Outlaws are ruling space. They have their stronghold here, and they will attack you anytime you try to travel from one planet to another.
They don't sound very nice. So Atlas is the solar system that the game takes place in, is that right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, Atlas. And it's actually, the fun thing about Atlas that was important for us in the team is that it's actually a real star that belongs to the Pleiades star cluster.
Wow.
You can see it in the night and point at it and be like, oh, this is where Starlink is
That's very cool.
happening. Yeah.
Very cool. And so who are we? Who's our crew? Who do we play as?
So you play as a group of adventurer explorers that we call the Starlink Initiative. And you start the game in the search for the homeworld of one of your alien member that we call Judge. But as you arrive in Atlas, things are not going to go that easy, and you're going to have to find out who attack you.
Ah, this is a familiar face right here.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Fox McCloud.
Yeah, in the Nintendo Switch version, Fox McCloud is playable, or his ship is at least playable in the game, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. On Nintendo Switch, you can play as Fox. You can play the entire game with Fox if you want. And you can also play with the legendary R-Wing. And the cool thing is that the R-Wing embeds the Starlink technology, so you can really detach the wings, mix and match them with the other wings of the Starlink ship, and customize the R-Wing in a way that you've never done before.
Yeah, that's the whole other side of this game, is the the toys of life, if you want to use the term. Having real ships that they click onto the controller, right? Or onto your Switch.
Right on top of the controller.
Yeah.
So the way it works is that you have what we call a Starlink mount that is adapted to each console specific aspect. And so on Switch, for example, you just slide in your controllers on the Starlink mount, and after that you can select your pilots. So all of our pilots have different personalities, and they also have different abilities that you can use in your combat playstyle. So then you're going to connect your pilot, and then your starship. All of our ships belongs to different class. So there are some of them that have more speed, some of them that have more defense. So you really build the starship of your dream, but also the starship that suits your playstyle.
So how many pilots are there?
When we're going to launch, we're going to have it's around 10 pilots total. Yeah.
So is it where pilots have their own abilities, and then the ship has its own different weapons and abilities, so you're sort of customizing your playstyle by combining pilots with ships?
Yeah, pilots and the ships, and then the weapons after that.
Weapons, okay.
And you can trigger like devastating combos when you mix and match the different weapons. Something that was important for us for the development was this idea of creative combat. And creative combat, what it is really is how you mix your pilot ability, like slowing time for everybody else but you, for example, with the weapons that you're going to be attaching to your ship. You can connect up to 2 weapons to your ship. So the right weapon with the right, you can use the right weapon with the right trigger, and the left weapon with the left trigger. And so really, it's really super interesting to see how players are adapting to the different challenges of the enemies that are encountering in the game.
But it's true, you don't need the real-life toys to access all these ships, is that correct?
Absolutely. So we're going to release, when you buy the physical version of the game, you can play, of course, with this modular starship innovation that is dear to us. But if you prefer, you can get the digital version of the game and play completely with the digital interface to swap the different parts. And even if you get the physical version of the game, you can at any time remove the starship, remove the mount, slide in the Joy-Cons out of the Starlink mount, and put them on your Switch and go play Starlink on the go, because you'll be able again to use the digital interface to swap the different parts.
Very cool. Tell me about the Equinox. Is that the spaceship that your pilots all reside on?
Yes,
Okay.
the Equinox is the mothership
Okay.
of the Starlink initiative. And what's really cool with the Equinox is that it's powered by a Nova core, which is this incredibly rare resource in the load. It's Victor Sangran, the captain, that worked with the alien judge to work on this technology, and it allowed the humans to travel in between stars. And throughout the game, you'll be able to upgrade this Equinox. So, for example, when you play the game, you can collect mods to improve your starships and your weapons, and the mods have different levels. So you can have common ones, rare ones, epic ones, and by upgrading the Equinox, one of the upgrades that you can benefit from is that you're going to be able to fuse some mods to obtain higher level mods. So, and this is just one example of the things that you can do by upgrading the Equinox.
Very cool. So here in Atlas, in the solar system, you can fly in between planets at will, and it's all in real time, right? You actually leave the atmosphere, fly to a different planet without you're not just like warping there or loading there, right?
Yes, totally. And it was something really important for us to provide players with that freedom of exploring this star system. So at any time, you can, if you're on a planet and you see in the sky an asteroid field, it's an actual real asteroid field, so you can take off and go there to find some more resources. It's absolutely you can explore the entire star system very early in the game. Actually, now you might have some enemies that are a higher level in some places in that star system. So then it's going to be up to you to decide how you want to approach that.
Is there outer space combat as well? Because we've seen a lot of combat like on planets, but when you're out in free space?
In free space, yes. The Outlaws are really ruling space.
Okay.
So when you and you have also some units of the Forgotten Legion that are in space as well. We call them the Drakes, and they're patrolling in search for potential enemies. And so they will attack you also if they find you. So you have those epic space combat. Really, it's really is like a big action adventure open world game that will give you, I hope, the chills of a space opera when you play it.
So all these different planets, do they all have different ecosystems, different local wildlife and aliens, different terrain, different flora and fauna?
Yeah, absolutely. We spend a lot of time creating building the worlds and creating the geological stories of those worlds before building them, and then we carefully crafted every flora and fauna that you might encounter on those worlds. There's a lot of things to collect, a lot of minerals and special flora samples to collect that later on you can trade with the factions on each of those worlds. All the creatures are different per planet, so by scanning them you can discover more about how they live on those worlds. So it's been really something fascinating for us to build over the years, the history of this world before even starting to create it.
Do you know which world we're looking at right here?
Yeah, so we're looking at a planet that we call Kirit. It's one of the planets you're going to discover early on in the game. And in fact, what's super interesting with that planet, I was talking about the geological story of those worlds that we've built. This planet before was covered in water completely. And over the years, water completely evaporated. And now it's a big desert planet. And you can see the remains of what it was before with those giant skeletons that belong to sea creatures that once were roaming free in the oceans of that planet. So that's how we approach the creation of each world.
Very cool. Here we're seeing the screen where you can you're changing your loadout?
Yeah, so this is what we call the build screen, and here you can equip different weapons. You can modify those weapons with the different mods. You can also access your pilot skill tree. All the pilots have a skill tree that you can customize throughout the game. And so it's cool because it's kind of a safe place to reconfigure your loadout depending on the enemies you will be encountering. But also, if you want, you can seamless swap. So when you remove a part, by default, it will pause the game and go in the build screen.
Gotcha.
But you can turn that option off if you want in the options. So I've seen players, for example, who prepare a special wing with a special weapon and are going to hot swap during a combat. So that's pretty cool to see.
Can you swap pilots on the fly, or do you have to go back to the Equinox for that?
So when you can swap pilot on the fly at any time, and the story will continue. The dialogues will adapt to the personality of that new pilot that you link in. It's just when you remove the pilot, it will pause the game because at this particular moment you don't have any more pilot on the planet.
That makes a lot of sense. So your main enemy is the Forgotten Legion.
The Forgotten Legion, yes.
What's their deal? What are they after?
So the Forgotten Legion is a mysterious army that suddenly reawakened in the worlds of Atlas. And there are lots of rumors about them and who created them. But what's happening in that, and you're going to discover some of those rumors while playing the game. And really what you're going to do in the game in Starlink is discover who's behind the Forgotten Legion, who reawoken them, and what's the purpose of it.
I see. So you're taking missions, it's a big open world that you get to explore, completing missions. What about boss fights?
So we created a very large boss fight. Maybe you've seen some of it from our E3 demo. We have one in particular that is called the Legion Prime, and the Legion Prime can be deployed on any of the planets to plant those extractor towers. And so the thing is that is super cool with that is that it's completely dynamic. So as you play the game, primes get deployed on the planet. They will roam free, plant those extractor towers, and when those extractor towers are planted, they will create a massive electromagnetic storms. And those extractor towers will send raiding parties to attack the outposts of the local factions. And if you don't stop that, the entire planet can be covered with this storm.
Wow.
So we think it's something super cool because it makes the enemy really feel alive in the game.
You're saying each of the pilot has their own skill tree?
Yes.
So are you earning experience points to level them up? And do you have to be playing a pilot to earn experience for them? Or is it shared between them all?
So the way it works is that you gain experience throughout the game as you progress through the main structure of the game, or even when you perform missions for the different outposts. And the way it works is that you gain those skill points by mastering your gear. So when a pilot masters a weapon, you get a skill point for it.
Okay.
So by playing with the different weapons that you have and the different starships that you have, you'll get more and more experience and skill points that way.
So you're encouraging players to to make use of all the pilots, is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, very cool. It's been a couple years we've been following this game now, and I think everyone that gets their hands on it are like, wow, this is really fun. Everyone's been really excited for it. Now it's we don't have to wait too much longer. October 16th.
October 16th, yes.
Launch day. Coming to all current platforms, is that right?
Coming on all current platforms. So the game is coming out on October 16th on the Nintendo Switch with exclusive R-Wing and Fox My Cloud, of course, and exclusive Star Fox mission that we'll talk more about later.
Okay. And you don't have too much time, though.
I know. And the game is also coming, of course, on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One as well.
Very cool. I'm excited to finally play it. Thanks you so much for coming by the IGN stage.
Thank you.
Stay tuned. More to come from IGN Live at Gamescom 2018 after this.